Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Caradonna Adventures Master Series. And today we have Waidroka Bay Resort in Fiji. And the presentation is going to be hosted by Richard Akhtar. And we'll have about a 40-minute presentation followed at the end by questions and answers with one of our agents, Doris Pfister, who actually was just recently this past year visiting Waidroka Bay. So go ahead and take it away, Richard.
Thank you, Elisa. Hello, everybody. Good to meet you. I'm Richard Akhtar, and I'm responsible for sales and marketing for Waidroka Bay Resort in Fiji. I'm actually based in Colorado, have been for the last 5 years, but I lived in Fiji for the better part of 15 years. So really feel that it's one of my homes. So I guess right now when you're staying at home, you kind of think you have a lot of time to do all sorts of projects around the house. And then you realize that the database needs updating, you tinker with the website, you have to do some bookkeeping. Anyway, I'm trying to keep some projects in mind. And as you'll see in a second, building a potting shed has been on my list for a while. And then this happens. And yeah, this is Colorado and why you need a potting shed. And obviously there's no skiing to be had. So I guess, though I'm one of the lucky ones and I get to travel quite a bit in more normal times, when it's like this, I find myself dreaming. Dreaming about warmer, sunnier days when, no, not when my potting shed would be complete. More like this, spending a day surface interval on Untitled Island in Beqa Lagoon in Fiji, having just completed an amazing soft coral dive, maybe snacking on some fresh tropical fruits, eagerly anticipating the next dive. So on that note, I'd like to look at some Fiji diving, importantly, where to go diving in Fiji, our resort, Waidroka, and also some of the non-diving activities that are available, and can't do a presentation on Fiji without talking and introducing the people too. And finally, maybe even to start to explore a little bit beyond the dream into maybe turning Fiji into a possible reality and how we might do that. Just to start with a little broad general view on diving in Fiji. Fiji has 4% of the planet's reefs. Huge biodiversity. When I first went to Fiji in 2002, I think we were counting around 1,000 to 1,200 species of fish. Now we're up to 1,800 species of fish and counting. And to put that in perspective, the Caribbean, the Atlantic, has 300 species. Not that's, I mean, I love diving the Caribbean. In fact, I'm sad to be missing my Cozumel trip that should have been coming up in a couple of weeks' time. But if we're looking at biodiversity, the South Pacific really, and Fiji especially, on another level. Some of the world's healthiest reefs with warm tropical water year-round. It is a year-round destination, though we do get some variation. We're looking at about 78 in the middle of winter, so July, August, September, up to about 85-ish tops in the middle of our summer, which would be January, February. It's been named the soft coral capital of the world, and we'll go a little bit into that in a minute. And there's over 1 million square miles on the archipelago of underwater. So understanding how to break that down and where you might go diving is very important. Here's the Fiji archipelago right here. There's 332 islands, seems to be the agreed upon number. 110 of them are permanently inhabited. But if you want to break that down and go to Fiji diving, and please forgive me if I'm telling you information that you already know and that you're already Fiji experts. But this is good information to think about anyway. You can really break the Fiji archipelago down into 4 main dive regions. And starting from the top there, and I might have a pointer, there's the Rainbow Reef you normally dive that from Taveuni, and that's up in this area here. As you can see, it's a narrow strait of water. It's pretty shallow. There's deep water either side. So you have current either screaming in this direction or this direction. Makes for some lively diving, some great dive sites, soft coral. One of the famous dives up there is the Great White Wall. And then coming down, you have Bly Water, which is this area here, very deep water with offshore pinnacles. The liveaboards dive up through here, or the liveaboard, I should say, and come down through this region too, and can also be dived from land-based operations here in Raki Raki. Then down at the bottom, this is where I used to live on Kandavu. Kandavu has a reef called the Great Astrolabe Reef that comes all the way down this side of the island, stretches for about 80 or so miles. It's one of the world's largest barrier reefs, primarily hard coral, with a lot of deep water. And then last but not least, the area that we dive is Beqa Lagoon, right here. Beqa Lagoon and also shark diving. So this is a little bit of a close-up of that lagoon area. There is really something for everybody here in Beqa. It's got little bits of all of the diving that you can get around Fiji. So I like to think that it has the largest variety of dive sites in any one area in Fiji. And something else that is really worth mentioning right now is that the diving is pretty exclusive. Now, by that I mean that wherever you dive in Fiji, in all the main dive areas, it's constantly surprises me that you're not in competition with other dive boats. Yes, there are more than one dive operator in each of the areas, but it's just a handful, maybe 2, 3. You can be diving 7 days in an area and maybe even never see another dive boat. So we're certainly not competing for dive sites, and the reefs, for such healthy reefs in the world, not to have this kind of diving pressure, I always feel is very privileged and very exclusive. So as I say, one of the largest variety of dive sites in Fiji, and just going to go through a few quick slides here. So obviously soft corals here with swim-throughs, critters galore. There's even a wreck here in Beqa Lagoon called the Tasu 2. And yes, there's even these, and I know this is very cliched, but people get upset if I don't put these in the presentation for some reason. There are 3 species of anemone fish in Fiji, and there's a reason that Beqa Lagoon has been tagged the soft coral capital of the world. This is a very typical pinnacle shot, lots of soft coral, lots of color, lots of colorful fish. And of course, we're also known for shark diving. And here's a couple of tiger sharks close enough to be, have their nose kind of on the dome port. And this is one of the best shark dives anywhere. And you'll get up to 8 species of shark on a dive, often with 30, 40, maybe even 50 bull sharks. And it's quite interesting because the bull sharks disappear when the tiger comes along. It's pretty impressive to see. So moving on to the resort for a little bit, Waidroka Bay Resort. It's a small private resort right on Viti Levu. Viti Levu is the main island in Fiji. As you can see, it's tucked into the rainforest there on its own private lagoon, and it is facing the Beqa Lagoon that we have just been talking about. It's 4 kilometers, so almost 3 miles off the main road. So it's pretty tucked away there, and it really feels like you're away from it all. Obviously, we have a big emphasis on scuba diving, but also a lot of adventures based on the land on top of the water too.
Hi, Richard. Excuse me for a second. Apparently, there's a little bit of an output issue on our Facebook live stream. So if you could just give us a second to get that fixed.
Sure.
And then we'll let you, then we can continue. Sorry, everyone.
Is it something this end? Are you hearing me okay?
I hear you okay. It's it's the stream. We'll fix it in 1 minute. In the meantime, perhaps Doris can jump in with some questions that came previously, and until we get up to speed. Doris, have you had anything that you can come on board and tell us about?
Actually, it's great timing because we just saw some shark photos there, and I have a couple of people asking if there's a particular time of year that you can see the tigers, and then again, if you can see the bull sharks, or are they there year round?
That's a really good question. The tiger, they're all there all year round. The bulls do disappear for a little while. I think they go off for breeding purposes, and I will have to get you the exact period of that because I can't exactly recall. I think it's February. The tigers are there all year, but tigers are territorial, so they have a huge territory. This is not a done deal that the tigers will come through. It's pretty, it's pretty exciting when they do, but they show up when they feel like it.
Well, I understand that. I've been to Beqa, your area a couple of times, once in September and once in November, and the tigers have eluded me, but we had some amazing, amazing interactions with the bull sharks. It was phenomenal.
So we just heard from our tech team that we're ready to go, but go ahead and continue. Just wanted to let you know, Richard, that we're all set for you to jump back in.
Okay. So we had started to talk a little about the resort on Viti Levu. So that's the main island, just over maybe 2.5 hours from the airport. And it's an intimate resort. We only have 12 bures, they're called in Fiji, bures and rooms. So we like to think of it as a perfect home away from home. Certainly of the size where all the staff will get to know you by name extremely quickly and treat you as one of the family. But also, I think that people will be looking to more self-contained, smaller places like ours going forward. As I say, it's a huge advantage being on the main island. You land very early in the morning, about 5:30 in the morning, from Los Angeles or San Francisco, collected by us at the resort in time for breakfast, and for those who are keen, ready to jump straight into the water. I'll show this map again. There are a couple of operators who dive Beqa Lagoon. We're really the one who does it from the main island. And you can see here, most of the Beqa Lagoon sites are out along here. So we're perfectly positioned to just pop out and dive all of these. So we like to, because the accessibility and the ability to do things off the water too, we like to think of our resort as the place to dive Beqa Lagoon. We mentioned the shark dive. The Fiji shark dive is here, the one that we work with. It's operated by a company called Aquatrek. We use them because we can pop out from our resort here in our own boat with our own crew, our own dive crew, and we dive as a as a resort unit. So we're not using anybody else's boats. We're not having to go down there by road, and we stay, as I say, with our own staff, who take us down to the shark dive, bring us back to our own boat. So that feels really good. And this is just about a 25-30 minute trip down by boat. The shark dive is 2, so we always kind of do our surface interval on the mooring there. And then on the way back, we'll either pop up here to do a 3rd dive, or one of these dives along here, close to home. And something I didn't mention before that we also have huge advantage of by our location is the ability to pop out and come out here, the outer walls of Beqa Lagoon. So not diving in the lagoon anymore, but diving the steep outer drop-offs, which is a totally different type of diving. We're talking more deep water and open ocean drops. And then finally, and it's just off the map here, there's an offshore pinnacle. It's quite a way. It's about an hour and a quarter away. We'd go out there and do 3 tanks, but it's called Beqa Lagoon. It's a pinnacle in about 6,000 feet of water, which is great for going and exploring. So time to dive sites, anywhere from 10 minutes to coming out here is about 40 minutes. We are a PADI dive center, but as I say, we're an intimate small resort, so we can dive a maximum of 24 divers. So we do that on 2 boats of 12. But something worth mentioning, and there may be some, I believe there might be some dive shops listening in. If there is a group of 20 people, then we guarantee the whole resort, which is a great way to have a group at the resort, not having to cater to anyone else's agenda, just yours. We have a fleet of 5 boats. I'll show you the main one of the main boats again in a minute. And here's how our dive day works. So if we're doing an early start for any particular reason, to catch a tide, it would be the main reason, then we would do a briefing the night before. But normally we'd be having breakfast starting at around 7, and the dive team would be there talking about the diving for the day and doing some briefing of how the day is going to go. And on average, we're leaving at around 8:30 in the morning. So whilst you're having breakfast, the staff will be loading everything up, all the equipment on the boat's ready to go. And sometimes we'll go out for 2 tanks and have a surface interval on a beach or on the boat, and then return back to the resort for lunch. If we want to go further afield that day, we'll go out for 3 tanks, and we'll take a lunch with us on the boat. So if we're doing a 3-tank day, return back, well, either 2 or 3 tanks, returning back to the resort by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, the staff will take care of all the equipment, and generally gives you a little bit of time to get ready, to shower, and happy hour will be waiting for you at that time. I did mention the boats and surface intervals. This is pretty typical of what we do. That's one of our dive boats there. The 2 main dive boats are catamarans. They're very stable. There's a lot of room on board. Now, moving on to the resort itself. As I mentioned, we have 12 rooms, bourrées, and 20. So that's about 24, 26 people maximum. If there's a group, 20, we'll cap it, if that's the group size. And in 3 types of accommodation. And so I'll show you those in just a second. But we have 3 categories. We have 11 acres of grounds, so we're very self-contained. We have the resort, beautiful grounds around us. And of course, a restaurant on site. We have 2 bars, a pool, a yoga studio, and all the amenities on site for activities that aren't diving, like free kayak, stand-up paddle boards, etc. So let's show you the resort in a little more detail. So as I mentioned, 3 styles of accommodation. Up on top here, we have the panoramic ocean view rooms. This is a block of 5 rooms. I'll show you inside in just a second. They have amazing views that you might want to consider if thinking about one of these. As you can see, these steps up here, there's just over 80 of them. Not for everybody. It's worth the views when you get to the top. But as I say, not for everyone. Then we have the deluxe bures. You can see just the tops of them here. And there's a couple more in here. So there's 5 altogether. And then finally down here we have superior bures, which each have 2 rooms. And looking inside, remember the ones at the top of the panoramic. So this is from inside one of those, and then the ones, the bures, is a view inside those. So coming into the main part of the resort, as I said, mentioned, there's the pool. I see somebody in there doing a try dive or discover scuba, and dining options, either in the main area, but we often like to dine out and about. This is obviously a socially distanced group that want to dine by themselves. It is an advantage that we number of places around the resort where we can set people up and they can dine in private, or if appropriate and with groups, etc., we can put everybody together in the main area. Something to mention about dining, Manasseh, our chef, he competed in a New Zealand TV competition last year. It was all the Pacific Islands. First of all, they had to compete within each country, so Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, etc. So our chef, Manasseh, won the Fiji competition, went on to compete. Sadly, didn't win the Pacific-wide, but did come second. So we're very happy to have him on board. And just a quick view of the resort from the other way around. This is obviously the dive boats here, and then dive shop, central area, bures that I showed you tucked away in here, and then right up at the top here, the panoramic rooms again. Another huge advantage of being based where we are on the main island is that we have access to a huge variety of land-based and cultural activities, as well as the diving. So we're pretty close to an area called Pacific Harbour, which dubs itself the adventure capital of Fiji. But there is a huge amount of options for people on non-dive days, or also the non-divers who visit us. So I'm not going to talk in detail about them all, but I'd just like to show you some of the options that are available. And just preface it by saying that underwater, Fiji is known as being pristine, but that's also true of the environment above water too. Surfing, I'll show you this. You heard me mention Frigate's Passage for diving. This is actually the wave on Frigate's Passage, and it's one of the famous waves in Fiji and pretty known around the world in the surfing community. So this is taken from the dive boat on a surface interval, having just done a dive there. So it's pretty cool. In the interior, there's a river called the Navua River, and it's really great for, there's some grade 3 rapids, maybe 4 if the water's running pretty hard. It's one of my favorite non-diving things to do in Fiji. It's absolutely spectacular in there. And you might think that you're in Colorado rafting down a canyon until you look at the vegetation and see that it's tropical, and you might actually want to be jumping in the water to cool off rather than trying to avoid everything to be in the water. So very beautiful. And this is all ages and all fitness levels can do this. But if you want to do something a little more relaxing, then the lower reaches of the river have tubing and kayaking opportunities. And then we're also very close to some caves that you can explore, canopy, zip lining, caving. And worth mentioning here that the health and safety standards in Fiji are very high. Everything is pretty much drafted to Australian standards, which are extremely high. So these are all well run and with very attentive and well trained staff. And something that I have really enjoyed is some of the trekking in the interior of the island. You might need a little more time to do this. You can do day treks, but also multi-day treks are available where you go from village to village. And these are everywhere, waterfalls up on the Nevua River there. So always take time to stop and jump in. For those who want to do stay a little closer to home when not diving, see, Fiji is very well known for its spas and spa treatments. We have Pure Fiji, amazing products that are made there, Pure Fiji and Essence of Fiji products that you can enjoy. And I did mention a yoga studio. We have yoga classes on site for those who want to participate. They are complimentary, no pressure, but some people like to continue their practice when they're away from home. And as well as being environmentally intact, Fiji is also very culturally intact, and this is a really important part of most people's visit to Fiji. It's the anthropologists have determined that the Fijian people arrived as early as 2000 BC, which is remarkable considering the Vikings only reached the Americas 3,000 years later, and Columbus just over 500 years ago. So there's still a lot of debate as to their origins, but Fiji really sits at the crossroads of Polynesia and Melanesia. And today is multicultural country, multi-faith country of around about 900,000 people. And really they were left largely alone for most of that history, a lot to do with their fearsome reputation. Visitors didn't always manage to leave, as I'm sure you've heard. But today, you would not wish to meet more welcoming people. The Fijians love to sit around, chat, tell stories, involve you, tell you about themselves. They love to hear about your stories too. And they will share that culture without it being contrived. It's very natural. And above all, the Bula spirit, which is the happy welcome that you will receive, and not just at resorts. If you wander into a village or around town, people will always be shouting Bula and looking to engage you in a chat. So, summing up, why Fiji as a South Pacific diving destination? Well, and I put here that it's close. Clearly, it's a long haul, but I think it's the most accessible of all the South Pacific diving from the US. Obviously, we're talking West Coast as a direct flight every day from Los Angeles, a further 3 times from San Francisco. And it's hugely well connected elsewhere too. If you wanted to consider going on to Australia or New Zealand, we have multiple flights a day from there, also connected to Asia via Singapore. So very, very well connected and direct flights. Incredible diving, some of the planet's richest biodiversity. As we just went through, a huge amount of non-diving activities. And something that's really important here in the US is it's English speaking. English is the language in schools after age 5. It's the language of government. It's the language of business. Everybody speaks. It does make things easier for travel, and it is amazing tourist infrastructure and a really good medical and health system. All important considerations. And pretty relevant to our time now. And just to address the elephant in the room, the Fiji did have, and you can check the official government figures, but this is the information I'm getting, 18 cases of COVID-19. That's 18. 0 deaths, and those 18 cases are down to 4 cases now. So obviously they're looking at, within the next, hopefully, matter of days or weeks, those 4 cases being 0. So that is the incredibly good result for them. They jumped on this very early. So that's something that's very relevant right now. And as we discussed, some of the friendliest and most welcoming people on Earth. And that's not a glib statement. I'm hoping there are some people listening in that have been and nodding their heads and remembering that. It's really why one of the reasons that people return again and again. And why us? Why consider Waidroka? As I said, we believe it's the place to dive Beqa Lagoon. Being on the main island, it has a lot more flexibility to dive that area, which is one of the largest varieties of diving in Fiji. Huge amount of non-diving activities for non-diving partners or for days off, and close and easily accessible to the airport. Small, intimate, and private and contained, and that's great in the best of times to have a more intimate environment. And as I say, with 20 people, you can have the whole resort. But I think going forward, it's going to be something that's very important in the near and medium term. To have an environment that can be controlled and contained and managed and looked after as well. Away from the crowds. A lot of access to cultural experiences, visiting villages, as well as packages value, which we think are great value for money, and generally pack in the diving. So at this point, I did say earlier on, maybe look, we could possibly start looking beyond the dreaming of destinations to maybe turning that into a reality. And I'm not going to go into the huge detail here because I believe that you'll be getting that information. But we're starting to think of that by looking at ways in which people can get something in the calendar, in the diary, some dates with zero commitment for a reasonable amount of time, 3.5, nearly 4 months without any commitment whatsoever, and dates being able to be changed unlimited number of times whilst people navigate through where we're at and what might be possible, and not having to worry about, well, I put something on the books for March next year, and now I'm not sure, and whatever. So we're trying to really take that uncertainty away by being very flexible with what we're offering, and you'll get all those details. And then, just in summing up, want to bring it back to the Fijians, because they can articulate this much better than I can. And here's a 1-minute video that really tells the whole story.
Hola! I've been thinking, there are not many billionaires around here, but there are plenty billionaires. Bula!
Bula! Bula!
Bula! A billionaire is a person rich with happiness. Here in Fiji, Bula is more than just a greeting. It's a wish for happiness, good health, and the energy of life we want to share with the whole world. Bula! Bula! After all, why have the last laugh when you can have the first? Hey! Billionaires, the people who are rich with happiness. Share in Fiji's Bula spirit and meet the people who are rich in happiness.
So, as we say in Fiji, sotatale. This is not goodbye, this is see you again. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Vinoka, Richard, thank you so much. Great presentation, and I know myself, I experienced time in Fiji with you at one of your resorts, and I just came back feeling like my soul had been enriched in so many ways. The people, the marine life, the culture. So I'm going to go ahead and have Doris come in now and address some questions that came on through the presentation. And again, everyone, start planning to go to Fiji. Take it away, Doris.
Bula, Bula. Bula, that video was absolutely fantastic. It just puts a smile on your face. So that was really a highlight. We got quite a few questions on Zoom and Facebook. So I have a couple from Jan, and she is asking, what is the diver to guide ratio?
6-to-1. Tops.
6-to-1, awesome. And she's also asking if there's any stony coral disease or coral bleaching in Fiji. And I told her I was just there in September and didn't see any damage, but I thought you might have some more insight.
No, and I think that, you know, every reef system occasionally gets a little bit. The last real bleaching, I think, in Fiji was in 2000, but the speed with which the reefs bounced back was extraordinary and led to a lot of research. And because of there's nothing south of Fiji until you get to Antarctica. There's New Zealand, but mostly Antarctica. So you've got all that oceanic water filters up through the archipelago. And keeps it regulated, and it flows through, so that there's no real pockets of hot, damaging water, and so the reefs stay very, very healthy, and that, along with lack of pressure on them, I think is it all contributes to it, but not seen to any degree.
Awesome. Okay. And then we also have a question from Liz on Facebook, and she is asking if there are firewalkers.
Yes, there are. The firewalkers come from Beqa Island, and they. Yes, you can get to see them. They actually heat stones and walk on hot stones. It's quite incredible to see. But yes, if that was something that you were interested in, we could get that set up.
Wonderful. Is there a time of year that you would say would be best for divers to visit? Or, I mean, I know we kind of sell it year round, but is there any month that you would shy away from possibly, or just any time would be good?
Any time's good. You have to consider a number of things, and I have my favorite times. I'm a bit of a wuss in the water. I like to be warm. And the warmest time of the year is January, February, March. The water's up as it can be as high as 84, 85. Now, with increased warmth comes reduced visibility. This is the same everywhere. You get more particulates in the water. The coolest time of year is July, August, September, which is when the visibility is going to be best. But the water temperature, as I say, we average it at 78. It can be as low as, if you get a really cool patch coming through, as 75. So as long as you have the right gear, I would say July, August, September, a 5 mil wetsuit, absolutely. Especially given the number of, the amount of diving we're doing, like 3 dives in a day, you would definitely need to have proper protection, but then you get the better visibility. The shoulder seasons are really good. So coming from winter to summer, November, December, the water's starting to warm up, but still relatively clear, or clearer. We don't really get unclear water. I mean, this is a comparison. It might not be 150 feet or 100 feet. It might be 80 feet. And then my favorite is kind of April-ish, April, May, because the water still retains the summer warmth. But the days are, it gets hot and humid in February. It's a little cooler above in those times.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to admit, I was there in September and the water temperature caught me a little off guard. For some reason, I just, in my head, always think, warm, tropical, but it was a little chilly, but we had fabulous visibility, so it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go finish up.
Oh, no, I was going to say, remember Fiji's 17 to 19 degrees south of the equator. So it's not going to have the same, water temperature stability as, say, Indonesia, for instance, right up there on the equator.
Fantastic. And can you give our listeners a little idea of what type of food is served, if it's kind of local cuisine or what kind of dishes, and if they have any special dietary restrictions, can the chefs work with that?
So absolutely. To answer the second question first, any dietary restrictions can be catered for. Now, remember in Fiji, if you have a severe coconut allergy, it's going to be, anywhere in Fiji is going to say it's going to be tough to totally isolate you from that. So there needs to be, some caution around some foods that are used in pretty much everything. But we cater for all dietary requirements, and the food is what's seasonally fresh. So Manassa is down at the markets in Suva and Pacific Harbour regularly, getting what's in season, what's fresh. And local cuisine, absolutely. So there's a number of different influences for local cuisine because, as mentioned, Fiji's now very multicultural from generations from all over the world. So local cuisine may well be Indian cuisine night, or it may be a Fijian Lovo evening where we dig the pit, heat hot stones, and cook the food wrapped in banana leaves on the hot stones, buried like a hangi in New Zealand, or that's a very Polynesian style cooking. So yeah, mix international, local, and fresh.
Awesome. And I think the last question we have is, we saw a couple of different dive boats in the presentation. Can you quickly run through them? How many divers per boat, that kind of thing?
So the two main dive boats take 12 divers each. They're both catamarans. And so 12 divers plus crew. So for 12, that'll be 2 dive guides split into groups of 6. Depending on the number of divers, so if we had a group, we'd be splitting out into 2 dive boats and trying to team people up with levels of experience and interest. So, maybe photographers who, wanted to take things really, really, really slow and go together or look for something specific. So there's a flexibility there. And then we've got 3 other. So the ones you saw in the pictures were the 2 main dive boats with 12 each. There are 3 smaller boats that that we occasionally use. Mostly to run
awesome.
tanks.
I think that answers everybody's questions. A great presentation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks
Richard.
for the opportunity.
Sotatale.
Sotatale.
All righty. Thanks again. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.